Hey, welcome to the Rubin Report. I'm Dave Rubin. I hope you know that already. We have a big show for you this week. 2 all-star celebrity panelists. First up, you know this guy from a little band known as NSYNC. He also is now the host of the Pop 10 on Sirius XM. Out Q, my old stomping grounds. Lance Bass, right. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. And next up, we have a man that, we are produced here by the Young Turks. This is the original Young Turk, so I assume you know who he is. Cenk Uygur, how are you, sir?
Awesome.
I feel good about this.
Yeah, no, I feel great about it. I'm just shocked that I thought for sure it was Backstreet Boys. No, it was NSYNC.
It was yes.
Okay.
I get confused myself.
Okay, all right.
98 degrees Backstreet, but then I always Google it myself. I'm like, yeah, it wasn't NSYNC. Yeah.
It was NSYNC, and we're NSYNC. So all right, let's get right to it. It was a big week for the gays. Every week that we've done this show, something happens to the gays, and actually it's been pretty good for the last couple of months. We got our first out gay professional athlete. This time it was give me a better woo-hoo.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! Okay.
Sure, yeah, woo!
Yeah. Thus the difference between gay people and straight people. Woohoo! Yeah!
God bless, yeah, all right.
Jason Collins of the NBA, 12-year veteran, a free agent right now, so he's not signed with the team at the moment, but he is an active player. He came out of the closet in an article penned in Sports Illustrated magazine, and this is pretty great. So there's a lot of things I want to talk about with this. First, though, Lance, I am sure you've never been asked this question before, but you're sort of the poster child for the big coming out. People magazine, I think it was around 2000.
Is that my MO now, the poster child for coming out?
You did it. It was on the cover of People. It was a huge thing. Maybe we've gone from that in 2006. I think this might be the beginning of the end of the big coming
announcement.
out.
I mean, I hope so. I mean, I really do. Back then, it was a little different, for sure. You know, not many people were coming out. My situation was a little different from Jason's. I had 24 hours to decide if I was going to do this article or not, because the magazines were going to write it anyway. I was already out, of course, to my friends and family, and I already was in relationships. So to me, in my personal life, I was out, but I guess publicly they needed that. Yes, I am, that confirmation. So I had 24 hours to decide if I was going to be on the cover of People magazine and do the story with them. And of course I said, yes, okay, I want to get my story out. And within 48 hours, it was out, and I didn't know what to expect at all.
And you've never looked back, and it's been pretty good since then.
Yeah, you rip the Band-Aid off, and it's amazing. And back then it was scary because one thing, I didn't want the gay community to be embarrassed by me coming out. I didn't want everyone to make it a joke and be like, yeah, that boy band guy, of course he's gay. But the way they handled it was amazing. I was expecting the Lenos of the world to really just give it to me, but it was the first time I heard people say, who cares anymore? Like, really? Like, who cares? And that was kind of a nice change for me. Yeah,
which all we really want is for people to say, well, who cares? Yeah. Cenk, when did you come out as straight?
Fairly early on, but it didn't stick. Unfortunately, the girls didn't get the memo. Like, I'm like, no, I'm straight. They're like, yeah, but I still don't care.
They just did not care. Well, all right, so let's talk about the news angle of this whole thing, because obviously this was the story of the week. For a month we've been talking about North Korea, then 2 weeks of Boston, and then suddenly it all disappeared today because of coming out. Is it really that big, really?
So I think it's big because it's the first player in any of the 4 major sports, so that's a watershed moment. Anytime there's a moment like that, it's huge news, and that's why everybody's talking about it. But on the other hand, I'm with Lance in the sense that we've, I think, gotten to a point where we're like, whatevs, and that's a great place to be. And so, I mean, like, think about right now, like, oh, a black player joined the NBA.
Right.
Like, that's not a news story, right? But back in the day, that was a giant news story. So hopefully we're soon coming to a day when, oh, okay, a musician or a basketball player or whatever is gay, whatevs, who cares?
Do you guys think, everyone keeps saying, well, that sports is the last bastion where it's okay to be anti-gay, and there's the locker room, and it brings up just other
issues.
issues.
Gay priests are probably the next thing.
That's the one.
That's the most. Yeah, that's the next hurdle everyone has to get over.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's one more layer though. The popes.
Popes, yes, gay popes.
Athletes, popes.
That was going to be a hard
priests.
one. That was going to be a hard one.
Actually,
but there used to be gay popes. You know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a long history of popes, and like half the time they'd be gay, and they'd be like, no, they're Leviticus. Don't worry about that. I mean, we all eat shrimp anyway, right?
Right.
And then the next pope would come by and be like, oh, that's ridiculous. No, we're back to anti-gay.
Doesn't the Pope own like the biggest gay bathhouse in Europe or something? Isn't it on the street somewhere?
A lot of the cardinals live there in Italy. Like literally the biggest bathhouse in Europe. They just coincidentally live upstairs, but they don't know anything about it.
No, they don't know.
No.
Okay, wait. Let's not go Pope direction. That can only take us to a bad place. I do think though that there is one other place where coming out still would be frowned upon, and I think it's from the world you came from, the boy band situation.
Isn't that weird?
Yes, yeah. I do think it's weird. I mean, if you took one of these One Direction kids, because they basically are kids, my guess is one of them is gay.
Well, I mean, statistically speaking, one probably is.
Yeah.
But it's crazy with a market like that because 100% young women, and they fantasize about these guys, and then you have the record labels and everyone kind of grooming you to make sure that you don't even mention you have a girlfriend. So screw the fact that you're gonna come out as being gay. It ruins their whole business plan.
Right. How ironic is that? Actually, they're telling you don't even say you have a girlfriend because we don't want to upset these girls, much less that you might be gay.
Because these girls,
that helps a little bit, right? Because you don't have a girlfriend.
But these girls really do fantasize. It's a crazy thing. I had a girl a couple of months ago come up to me, and she thought that we were in love, and that she was waiting for me this whole entire time, and she thought the whole gay thing was just a joke. Basically, I was just lying about it.
Was it Miley Cyrus?
Oh, damn it!
'Cause
You caught me. It is Miley.
That girl's desperate for attention.
Wow.
So I'm fascinated by that. I want to ask you a couple of questions about it. So your record companies, you were not going to tell them back when NSYNC was super hot. No way, right?
Oh no, I wouldn't even tell the guys. Are you kidding me? Well, I felt a responsibility. I really did. I felt like I had four of my best friends' careers in my hands. And it was a different time. It was early 2000s.
Right.
And I felt that if anyone found out, that it would be the end of the group. Everyone would completely make fun of us, and we would no longer make music anymore, which might have happened. I don't know.
So you had to hide it from everybody.
Everyone. I even hid it from myself. I didn't have any relationships. As long as I was within sync, I was completely asexual.
The closet is a very small room that you can turn into a giant imaginary world, basically, is my experience. So, all right, so as a news guy, when you're covering stories like this, obviously you, as a progressive, you believe that gay people should be equal and there should be gay NBA players and all that stuff.
You say so.
How do you balance between that and then the people, the Bible thumpers, and we're going to get to some of that in just a second, but I want to lead the clip by how do you decide to present something in a somewhat fair way when you pretty much know what you think about it and want to argue for equality?
Well, I try to educate people about their religions because nobody ever reads the actual books, right? So, and I don't want to be too denigrating, et cetera, because I know a lot of people of faith. My mom is a person of faith. She happens to be Muslim, right? But, but I love her, and I get that it comes from a good place for a lot of people, but they just don't actually know what's in the book. So in the same verse in Leviticus that you shall not lie with a man as you lie with a woman, it also says you should not eat shellfish. And everybody's eating shrimp, lobster, unless they're allergic or something. And so immediately they have this moment of like, oh my God, wait, am I gay? Have I done something as bad as the gays, right? And they almost don't believe it. And then when they go read it, they're like, oh, wow, why did we take the gay part and go ballistic over it, and we don't talk about the shellfish at all? Why is there no Red Lobster amendment?
It's the leaders of the church picking and choosing what they want to preach about.
And you guys have given me a perfect segue to our first clip. This is Chris Broussard on ESPN's Outside the Lines earlier today.
I don't agree with homosexuality. I think it's a sin, as I think all sex outside of marriage between a man and a woman is. And LZ knows that. He and I have played on basketball teams together for several years. We've gone out, had lunch together. We've had good conversations, good laughs together. He knows where I stand, and I know where he stands. I don't, criticize him. He doesn't criticize me and call me a bigot, call me ignorant, call me intolerant. And that I hear, and talking to some people around the league, there are a lot of Christians in the NBA. And they don't want to be, just because they disagree with that lifestyle, they don't want to be viewed and called bigoted and intolerant and things like that. And that's what LZ was getting at. Just like I may tolerate someone whose lifestyle I disagree with, he can tolerate my beliefs, and he disagrees with my beliefs and my lifestyle. But true tolerance and acceptance is being able to handle that as mature adults and not criticize each other and call each other names.
So the LZ that he's talking about is LZ Granderson, who's an ESPN columnist who is openly gay. And I find this clip fascinating because it goes to what you're talking about, Cenk, about the way people use the Bible, because he's also, there's an implication in what he's saying that somehow his feelings are as equal as the gay person's feelings, except only one of those two people, in this case, Jason Collins or LZ Granderson, only one of those people doesn't have equal rights. So it doesn't seem like it adds up to me.
Exactly. You hit it right on the head. You know, it's,
all right, pretty good. I guess we solved that one.
No, I mean, it is true. I hate when people just keep on throwing this religion into everything. I mean, it's sports. There should be no religion in a discussion about sports. It's a sport.
Yeah.
If he's going to complain, or anyone complain about being someone gay, and he made it equivalent as having sex outside of marriage for a man and a woman also, so why not complain about all those players having sex outside of wedlock?
Right.
Yeah, so that's the whole point about religion, and it's picking and choosing. Because if you wanted to actually follow the rules, everybody would be guilty. Like, premarital sex is just as wrong in the Bible. Is there a big question about, like, hey, we had our first player in the NBA who had premarital sex? No, everybody in the NBA, except for AC Green, has had premarital sex.
They're having premarital sex and postmarital sex in the NBA, I'm pretty sure.
And that's worse, right, if you're following the rules.
But we have not taken any of those people's rights away.
Exactly.
That's exactly it. And look, you know, unfortunately, a lot of people use religion for discrimination, and it's happened throughout history. So they don't, and I mean, look, on sports, are you kidding me? Touching pigskin is against the Bible. That's an abomination. So there goes the entire NFL, right?
Yeah.
But they don't choose that. They don't choose the shellfish clause. They don't choose the premarital sex or the divorce clause. They choose to discriminate against gays and use that part of the Bible because they want to discriminate. They also use the Bible to justify slavery.
Yeah.
Like, people now whitewash that like it didn't happen, but it happened.
Right, and which is the fascinating thing, because Chris Broussard, who obviously is black, is then using the same book that people used against him.
And even in the 60s, when blacks could not marry whites, they used the Bible against that whole debate also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? I think we don't even need the other clip, because I think we made the point. Gay is good, people. Get on the crazy bandwagon. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk a little politics. This weekend on Saturday was the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And this used to be just this little affair where the president and some of the media would get together and they'd rib each other. It has become like a bonkers bonanza, red carpet literally covered by the E! Network. We had celebrities like Psy, Katy Perry, Duck Dynasty. I think both Donald and Daffy were there. Yes, I was there. And it's just become this completely over-the-top big spectacle, and there's been a little blowback against it because people are saying, should politics and media and Hollywood be so intertwined? Do you guys think that there's a danger in having all our media so tight, and should the president always feel like a celebrity? Cenk, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, so there's a huge danger. I've been to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, I've been to the parties, the brunches, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm not trying to be a stickler here and say we shouldn't have it, but it should be the exception. It shouldn't be the rule. Like, it should be the one night when the watchdogs of the government says, hey, you know what, let's go grab a burger together. Let's, and let's stop being so mean to the government and trying to find out what they're doing and exposing it and telling the American people, et cetera. Let's just have a pleasant dinner together. If that was the exception to how they normally operate, great. But it's the rule. It's 365 days. They're constantly having cocktails together, et cetera, and they're conspiring unwittingly, in a sense, against us. Because what they're supposed to deliver us is the truth, is the news, is the facts, right? But instead, what they're delivering us is you know, what the government wants us to hear, because they sold out for access so they can go to the nerd prom.
Yes. So, all right. So you come from the world of entertainment, and I see this in a smaller way. I think what happens in LA and in Hollywood is the same exact thing. You're never going to fight against the power if you have an artistic dream, let's say, to do something great and different. You're never going to fight against the power if they're inviting you to parties all the time, because you want to be liked too. Do you see that as like a major problem when it comes to politics and even just in Hollywood in itself?
Well, I mean, we know that the media is, I mean, they report only what they're told to report anyway. So, I mean, why not have a big party together? I think it's important to get to know the president on a social level. It's just times have changed. Now that we are so interested in Duck Dynasty and Honey Boo Boo.
What is Duck Dynasty? What is it? I literally don't know.
I don't
what
know
is
either.
Everyone's Duck
It's
Dynasty?
the #1 show right now.
What is it?
It's these guys that make these duck calls. They're just backwoods, down home guys. And 100.
So it's not actually Daffy and Donald. I really thought that it had something to do with Donald Duck. I swear I thought.
No,
that.
but it's a show that I guess Middle America and Southerners can really relate to.
I like how your Southern roots came out.
Oh yeah,
there.
you hear that coming out right
Yeah.
now. It's 100% scripted. If you watch the show, it's scripted, but.
Yeah.
You know,
But
most
should
people don't know
Duck
that.
Dynasty be
Well,
sitting at the White House Correspondents'
But here's
Dinner?
the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Just in recent years, is reality stars the A-listers these days. We want to get to know them. We want to know their personal lives, and that's what I think people are wanting to do with the president now. We want to know him, and I think it's great that we want to know the president that well through his Twitter accounts and all that type of stuff. I want to know what he's thinking every single day. I don't want to wait to watch CNN or whatever to figure out what he's doing in the day. I want to follow him 24/7 if I want to keep him in check. And I think it's important that the public gets that connection with the president.
All right. Well, actually, speaking of getting to know the president, let's listen in a little bit to what the president said at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and I think you might get to know him a little bit better.
But the problem is that the media landscape is changing so rapidly. You can't keep up with it. I mean, I remember when BuzzFeed was just something I did in college around 2 a.m. It's true.
Okay, so the line there is, it's true.
And this is what I love about this, because back in the Clinton days where I didn't inhale, look how far we've come with that. We all know you're lying to us. Every single president has done probably every major drug out there and way more, probably slept with guys, all that kind of stuff. For
everyone.
I mean,
Nixon
it's just
definitely slept with dudes.
The stuff that, you know.
Probably the most likely.
Now, you know, when you have someone that's just honestly being like, yeah, okay, I obviously smoked weed in college. Okay, great. Then we know we're not lied to. You know, at least we know, okay, they're not trying to put up this crazy front.
Right, so I'm with you on that. The part that I have a problem with about this particular clip is that he's talking about weed, obviously. We've all smoked some weed. I have terrible shoulder pain and glaucoma. But he is also using the federal government right now that has been attacking here in California. They've been trying to close pot dispensaries, and they're putting people in jail still for smoking weed. There are people literally serving 20, 30-year sentences, not for selling weed, for smoking weed. Right. So is there a little bit of hypocrisy in what the president, in the game that he's playing?
No, there's a giant bit of hypocrisy, and it relates to the joke, and it actually relates to what Lance was saying earlier as well. So, look, I don't want to be a party pooper and analyze every joke and like you should, etc. Yeah. But at the same time, it's not funny when we have millions of people in jail for the same exact thing that Barack Obama and George W. Bush have done, have admitted to doing. So unless you're going to put those two guys in prison, let the other guys go, you know? And so by the nature of this dinner, they have to joke around about actual policy, and everybody hated it when Bush said, oh, where are the weapons of mass destruction? Are they here? Are they there? And that's a really important and serious topic, but so is what people characterize as the new Jim Crow. You know, imprisoning so disproportionately so many African Americans. You've got an African American president, he gets to joke around about it, but he never paid the consequences. And he's like you said, he's breaking a record in number of raids against drug dispensaries, which he said he wouldn't do, and that's outrageous.
Right. All right. So is it ultimately, at the end of the day, is this a net gain or a net loss that we now learn about our politicians through celebrity? That they have to bring these people in? Is this net gain? Because the average person is now learning something about politics, so that's pretty good. And then on the other hand, they seem to be blurring this line between truth and...
Well, I mean, I personally think that the more that we can get this younger, especially younger generation, more interested in politics, the better. If it's using social media and making him a reality star, great. People like us that follow politics and all that type of stuff, we know what's going on. We get educated about it. But these other people that are only watching Honey Boo Boo, that don't give a crap about politics, this is a way that you can actually like the president and like what he's doing maybe and figure out what he's doing.
And related to Duck Dynasty, apparently.
Yeah, well, look, my only concern about that is that they're not getting an accurate picture. I mean, all this, so like including his Twitter account, et cetera, is heavily managed, right? So they're putting out a version of Barack Obama that isn't necessarily, obviously, the real Obama. It's a version of it, right? And so if that's the only image that people have of him, they're not getting a true read. Because if they see that joke, they think, oh, he's cool. He's cool. He smoked weed. But they don't know that he's not that cool in imprisoning millions of people just for smoking weed.
Right. So perhaps if when Conan O'Brien went on after and had said, well, President Obama, you know, you have jailed a lot of people about weed, it would have got like this tepid laugh, but a little truth would have been in there. Instead, Conan was sort of making fun of Mitt Romney, which is just so easy at this point.
Yeah, but that's why Stephen Colbert had the greatest White House Correspondents' Dinner routine in history. It could never be topped. I mean, that's where he famously said, you know, reality has a well-known liberal bias. And the room, if you remember it, the room hated him.
Yeah.
Because he went after the government, he went after the media, and often it was like total dead silence. But it was fantastic. Yeah,
which is why I always tell you guys, if you want truth in news, don't go to MSNBC or Fox or CNN. Young Turks and Comedy Central.
That's right.
Okay. Speaking of news, let's keep going with this. So Chelsea Clinton is a special correspondent for Rock Center with Brian. Oh, special over which Chelsea Clinton or
special correspondent.
There's a lot of air quotes in this one on Rock Center with Brian Williams. And she's been getting a little guff for some of the softball pieces she's been doing. Let's take a look at this one.
Hi, Gecko. Thanks so much for answering our questions.
Oh, thank you, Chelsea. Look, sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I'm out on the road promoting my new book, You're Only Human. Shameless plug there.
I completely understand. Now, Gecko, do people recognize you on the street?
Actually, Chelsea, I mean, people don't usually notice me on the street because I'm only 6.9 inches tall. I spend most of my time just trying not to get stepped on. But I do get better tables at restaurants than I used to.
Is there a downside to all this fame?
Well, it seems the more famous you are, the more likely someone is to dig up your old yearbook photos.
And look what we dug up.
Oh, you're showing this, aren't you? Seriously, Chelsea, I thought we were friends. Oh, no, I'm going to remember this.
I just couldn't resist. Well, it's been great talking with you, and I wish you the best of luck on your book tour.
Oh, thank you, Chelsea. No, it's been great chatting with you.
Okay, so that awkward, stilted voiceover, that was Chelsea Clinton, President Bill Clinton's daughter, doing a special report. There's a lot of air quotes, I don't know.
It sounded like she was doing a children's book.
What is going, okay, so that is, Rock Center, this is a news program, you know, it's one of these news magazine things. That was a bought advertisement for Geico with the former president's daughter talking to an imaginary lizard. I don't even know what question to ask you guys. Go, give me something.
Now, unfortunately, this is what the media has become. You know, the real problem is they don't even see that as a problem.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, what do you mean? Yeah, and no, that's not a news report. That's a giant ad. I know that, like, you're in the ad business. That's how you get paid. I understand that. But there's supposed to be a firewall, which you've totally forgotten about, where the ad is not supposed to cross over into content.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're like, what planet is this guy from?
We should say, just to be clear, that they're actually selling that book. So this was not like some.
Was that a real book?
Yeah, it's a real.
Gosh.
The lizard, the imaginary lizard, made up an imaginary or real book. I mean, it's crazy. The imaginary lizard made up a real book and is selling it.
And talk to an imaginary reporter
who happens to be a real.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, is this all we can expect these days? Like, the line seems to be gone, but what can we do? What can we do?
There's nothing we can do. I mean, it's all about the money these days, and it's all about that advertisement, and now you've seen they've stooped as low as using the president's daughter and doing their commercials now.
Yeah, so I see this gets talked about, this type of thing gets talked about all the time, and this is sort of like, oh, the Democrats are this way, the Republicans this way, we're all screwed. But really, genuinely, what can people do to, like, this is a small scale thing that I think people could get upset about. Like, we can't have advertisements in our news programs. Like, if it's gonna start with this, we're not that far from the end, which is all bad. So what really can people do? Okay, well, so two things. Number one, you got to have truth in labeling, right? That's the thing that I'm most concerned about. Like with Fox News, if they just came out and said, oh, we were just kidding about that fair and balanced stuff. Obviously, we're conservatives.
Unfair, unbalanced.
Right, and we obviously want to help the Republican Party. I'd be like, fine, great, have at it, Hoss. That makes sense, right? There's nothing wrong with a channel that does that, as long as you're honest about it. And if Rock Center said, oh, by the way, we got to pay the bills, so we had Chelsea do this goofy thing that's an ad. Yeah. Okay, I get it, that's an ad, right? But once they make it seem like it's part of the news, that's not kosher, if you ask me. So how do we get beyond it? I mean, our whole network is a way of getting around, and this is not an ad. Okay. Ironic, I know, but no. But seriously, in all seriousness, part of the reason I started the Young Turks was the one Achilles heel of the media is how we can fix them in terms of they love to copy. Like if something works, okay, give me another one. Yeah. Okay, that boy band is working, give me another one just like it, right? And whatever their ethnicity is, their ages, I want an identical one. And then you got Bugs, and then you have Ants. You remember the two movies?
Oh,
and
yeah,
then,
which came out at the exact same time.
Exact same time. Right. I'm like, for Christ's sake, I mean, how specific can you be? It's two movies about ants. Yeah. Okay, and they're both cartoons. Anyway, so we're hoping that if we do something that's reality-based and that's real, news and real commentary, and we're honest, we're progressives, we admit that, etc., and that people go, wow, how did they get all those views? Maybe we should try being honest, and then that
imagine that.
Right.
I think there's so much miscommunication and just such bad information out there that people are confused. And that's why I think the government wants everyone to be uneducated in this country, because they want to keep them dumb. Keep them dumb, so anything that we report to you on Fox News, whatever, you're going to believe. We need a little truth meter at the corner of every single network, and it's a meter. It's like lying to whatever, and whatever's being said, commercial, everything, that little thing is that the truth or not?
Yeah, it would mostly be.
Well, then you would see who's telling the truth.
And that's exactly the thing that they fear the most. That's why Candy Crowley, during the debates, when she fact-checked Mitt Romney, the Republicans flipped out, and at the end, after the election, they said our biggest mistake was allowing Candy Crowley to be a moderator, because she had a truth meter for like one time, like one question, right?
We can't have the truth. This is a debate.
And they flipped out. They're like, that's Lance Bass's idea. We can't have that. That's dangerous.
All right, so final point on this. I think even the bigger problem than that, as big a problem as that is what about this way that we treat this aristocracy of the Clintons and the Bushes? I mean, this girl should not have this job. It's just as simple as that. There are journalism students out there. You both worked hard in your respective professions to get where you are. So how bad how do we change the culture of just because your parent is a president? Jenna Bush has a job also in media. I think, does she work for NBC also?
I think so.
I think she works for NBC. So I guess maybe this is just an NBC. Right. The N obviously stands for nepotism. But is that just a huge problem too? That it's just we get these names and then we want more of them.
But they need to be responsible. And and I know Chelsea, and she's a brilliant, brilliant girl. And I wish she would use those smarts that she has and do something that she wants to report on. I know she's probably being told you have to do this now. Maybe she's doing this, under the radar right now so she can get to the point where she can do the story she wants to do. But right now it's not happening, and I think, she's a smart lady.
That's a great point by Lance. If she broke a story about like government corruption or something, how awesome would that be, and how much attention would it get?
And they would put her immediately in the likes of her dad and her mother. Like, she would be like, it's Chelsea Clinton. Look how smart this girl is.
And it would help. It would help the country if she did it, right?
But ironically, don't you think she actually doesn't need something like that, because we keep the Clintons and the Bushes, and there's a couple other families in such a separate class from the rest of us, that she knows if she wants to be senator from New York, if Chelsea Clinton wants to be senator from New York, in 6 years, she will be. I mean, it's just as simple as that.
No, it drives me crazy. It's like our royalty. And the Kennedys, I mean, we're like 7 generations deep,
And like you have a Kennedy as your last name, you're like, well, okay, welcome to a congressional seat in the Northeast. Why? Why would we assume just because it has Kennedy in the last name that he's going to be smart or good or et cetera? And then the Bushes, okay, welcome. I hate that. To me, it's antithetical to everything that America is supposed to stand for.
Absolutely. I said this to the camera last time. We left England because they had a king and we had representation. We had taxation without representation, and we should not have families that are running the show. Let's move on. All right.
You know what?
Yeah. No, let's not move on. Stay right here.
I saw Michelle Obama the other day on air, and I had this epiphany for a second. I was like, oh, of course, she's next. I hadn't thought of it until then for whatever reason.
So
and I was like,
is this your bold prediction right now?
Well, look, it depends. I don't know her mind. I don't know what she wants. But if she wants it, a Senate seat's a near guarantee, right?
I don't think she would ever. I mean, she sees what her husband's going through. I don't think anyone would want that for their lives.
Except that, when she did the Oscars, it was really good PR for her, and that's not a mistake. And it made me think maybe they're grooming her.
Well, hopefully they're grooming her for education reform, health, and all that type of stuff. So hopefully, because she does great, works with that.
Right.
So I don't see her taking a Senate seat, but I hope that she does more of that. Even after he leaves the White House, I hope she's the face of especially this health crisis that we have in America.
Well, now she's trying to get kids to not be obese, and the Republicans are yelling at her because we're free, we should be obese.
Give me my big gulp. Oh, yeah.
That's actually why I have the shape that I do. It was for freedom.
You've done it for free. Every night he has a big gulp before bed for freedom.
Go America.
Freedom. All right, let's talk about Google. Speaking of freedom, or perhaps lack thereof, Google has released some data showing that requests by governments all over the world is beyond bonkers, skyrocketing. So let's look at some of the numbers. So Google had 1,811 requests in the first half to remove information from various governments, and then 2,285 in the second half of 2012. And I thought this was fascinating. The top 5 countries that are requesting Google remove information: Brazil #1, US 2, Germany 3, India 4, and Turkey 5. So let's start with that country list before we get into the hardcore numbers about it. Kind of fascinating. U.S. #2. Shouldn't Syria?
We should be #1.
Go USA. No, but shouldn't Syria and Iran? Where are all the bad guys?
Yeah, well, maybe they're on that list.
Or is it just because they don't put stuff up in the first place, so then they don't have to?
Well, and it's less populated too, so I'm sure the numbers are staggering when you go to Brazil and the United States with the amount of requests.
Right, but don't we think our internet is totally free here, and
right.
that there's nothing that the government could possibly not want on the internet? I mean,
yeah. So Brazil has a particular law that's you can't say something before an election about a politician, which you would think that's when you would want to say things about a politician. Right. So their numbers are skewed. But that's my problem with the U.S. I mean, we have the wiretapping on the one hand, and it's total invasion of our privacy. And then on the other hand, if you say something that the government doesn't like, whoa, we're going to have to take that down. Right. And I mean, we're supposed to be the bastion of the First Amendment, freedom of speech, etc. And so it's really disconcerting to see us at #2. And then as I was reading the article, the rest of the top 5 were in the last paragraph. I'm like, show me Turkey, show me Turkey. I know it's there. Boom, Turkey. And you know why? Because having grown up Turkish, everybody's offended at everything. Like, if you draw a mustache on Atatürk, the father of Turkey, they're like, oh my God, YouTube, take it down! Take it down! Yeah. Someone has criticized Atatürk! And?
Yeah.
Like, just get over it, dude. It's going to be all right.
Right, but yeah, the "and" part that you're talking about, I mean, this rarely gets overlooked, when there's the film about Muhammad, and then, Egypt wants YouTube to take stuff down. So that leads to my next question, which is, should Google's basically bigger than all the world's governments at this point, should they get involved in this kind of stuff, or just say, tough, we're just putting it all out there and...
It's tough because there's freedom of speech, and although I'm all for
at least.
Yeah, and I'm all for freedom of speech, but then with this whole information age, now it's just freedom to lie is what it's basically become. So where is that line where we can't? We got to figure out how we can prove that this freedom of speech we have is the truth. That's why everyone's so confused in this country, is because I'm watching the news for 5 minutes this morning for work, and I hear on the news, a cow was purple today. I'm going to believe that, even though that cow was never purple. But I'm going to go the rest of my life thinking that was purple, because I never heard the rebuttal of that.
What channel are you watching?
Fox News, of course. But yeah, so I mean, it's just everyone just throws anything out there, and people are going to believe it because you're being told.
Yeah. Isn't that just the price you have to pay for freedom? I mean, the social media has given us this incredible way of connecting people. Basically, started the Arab Spring in Egypt, but it's going to come with a cost. For example, right now in Egypt, you could argue that they're worse off than they were under Mubarak.
Well, freedom isn't free, right? And so there is a cost to it. And you know, the reason I'm so worried about U.S. being number 2 on that list, and of course they're among the bigger populations in the world, and I get that. And China's in a whole different category in how they shut down Google, et cetera. And they've had huge problems with Google. And Google's in a tough spot because they're like, look, I want to be all over the world, but if I don't do what that government says, all of a sudden I don't have access to that giant market. So I kind of feel bad for them in that sense. But look, if your government is trying to stop you from learning something, be worried, right? And so, for example, the innocence of Muslims thing. Yeah. Like if you're a Muslim and you really believe and you think Allah is up in heaven, etc., why would Allah, who knows everything and is all-powerful, be offended by a YouTube video?
Right.
Right? So, and if they're trying to keep that from you, it should make you go, I wonder if we're afraid of something, that people might find out something they're not supposed to.
Right. Well, that goes to that whole education thing that Lance was talking about earlier, about why that's the most important, because really critical thinking is the most important part. But my final question on this is, how would we know? At the end of the day, how would we know if our government right now was censoring stuff that they didn't want us to know? I'm looking at my Twitter timeline. If you don't see it, you don't see it. So I guess we're just all willful idiots. Is that fair to say?
Well, you hope that people raise a ruckus if something or somebody disappears.
Right.
Right. So, and there's still some good reporters out there: Glenn Greenwald, David Sirota, Jeremy Scahill, etc. And so there's some few people still on the watch. But yeah, largely, if you're not reading those guys and something went away because the government didn't want it to be there, yeah, that's a tough situation.
Yeah. So you can read those guys, or I recommend Lance Bass, Cenk Uygur on Twitter. Both of you guys have your real names, by the way, which is pretty much.
I steal mine back. Someone was using it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And you probably had them snuffed out on the DL.
They're disappeared.
Yeah. Well,
exactly.
You didn't know until now.
Controlling information. All right. Let's move on. Martha Stewart, she's back.
Yeah.
The woman never goes away. 71 years old. She went on the Today Show this week, and she announced that she's looking for a man, and where else would a robotic woman find a man but the internet? Let's take a look.
We know what you're looking for in a man, all those issues. What are you looking for in a relationship? Are you looking for a companion, a partner, someone to do fun things with? Yeah, would you consider marrying again?
Depends. And that's okay. I think not everyone on online dating is looking for the same kind of relationship, and that's why it's important to put in the profile who you're looking for.
I'd like to have breakfast with somebody. I'd like to go to bed with somebody.
That works.
Sleep with somebody. That's better to say.
I think you'll be a very popular online dater.
When did this all start with you? I've known you for 20 years.
I just wrote this book.
I know.
And it was always a very professional relationship.
All right, so I love how Martha's not sure whether going to bed with someone or sleeping with someone is the one that has the sexual context to it. Now, I should mention the guy she was sitting there with was her nephew or her stepson or something, who of course is writing a book, and she's also writing a book. Is there no price on anyone's head? Martha Stewart has more money than God, and now she's putting herself on Match.com for a man, but it's really for a book, right?
I mean, of course. And first off, at 71, she looks good.
She does look good.
She looks really good.
She was 71.
Yeah. I did not know she was that old already, but she looks great, and good for her. It's Martha Stewart. She has this, stereotype of being Martha Stewart, but it's so nice to see her being like, yeah, I want to go to bed with someone. I'm a woman. Yeah. And I think that's great. And
you want Martha Stewart to get laid.
I do.
Yeah. Cenk, Martha Stewart, you going to lay her? No, you're a married man.
Yeah. No, I'm not into the gilf thing. But some are,
Gilf? Oh, that's grandmother's, right?
Yeah.
Got it.
So, look, here's the thing. Part of me is, again, here we go with the same topics, like Match.com, I mean, this must be a giant promotion that they're doing, trying to get the older demographic on, and she's probably getting paid a boatload of money, etc. On the other hand, I think that I'm sure she's genuine about wanting to date somebody and do things. Maybe I can find him through this. And that was a nice, genuine moment where she was like, I'd like to go to bed with somebody. And I was like, you go get him, girl. At 71. And look, if I'm single like she is, and I'm past the age of 65. I've told these guys, it's no holds barred time. I mean, like, I will do anything. I don't give a damn what you think, because I'm agnostic. I think once I die, poof, lights out, gone. So you can, and the other thing is like, but what about your legacy? I got news for you. 200,000 years from now, no one has a legacy.
No one cares about the legacy.
So you better enjoy what you got.
If your name's on a building, it will not be there in 200,000 years. Yeah.
Does Martha Stewart joining Match.com, does that sort of bring the internet full circle? Because there used to be this idea that if you were dating online or you were hooking up or you were going on Craigslist, that it was bad and evil.
Tell anyone that.
But now Martha Stewart's on the Today Show. So has this thing really just fully evolved at this point?
Officially now, as of today, it has.
Anyone that does anything online.
It is there, yes. It is all good. If Martha Stewart's doing it, it's A-okay now.
Yeah.
If Jason Collins is out, then it must be okay to be gay in sports.
Hallelujah.
Right? And if Martha Stewart's on Match.com, it's officially sanctioned.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like, I've been married for a while and we've been dating for a while and stuff. But I was talking to a friend of mine who's younger, and she's like, what stigma? Like, she doesn't even understand that there was a stigma at some point. She's like, well, it's obvious. Well, where else would you go? I'm like, a bar? She's like, that's so weirdly inefficient. Why would you do that? She's like, I put up my profile for a certain period of time. Men flood in, right? And then I close it down right away so I don't have like 200 things to look through. And then if I ever want to date again, I open it for a brief period of time. Men flood in. I'll take, however, 12, 24. I'll sift through, find one or two to date. And that's how it works now. Welcome to America.
Yeah, and this is one of these things that's very different for different sexualities because, okay, so you're talking about a woman. She can open up this thing and there's a flood of horny men that want to jump her.
Yeah.
Gay guys have Grindr. Yeah. You got a straight guy has to, you got to, I don't know.
No.
I wouldn't even know what you would do.
Been screwed, ironically, by not being screwed. Grindr is the greatest app known to man.
Yeah.
And I'm so jealous of it. We can't have a straight Grindr because women won't participate.
There would be one very sore woman.
You'd be surprised. They do have the straight Grinders, and it's killing it.
Is it?
Oh,
you think so?
Yeah, it's very successful. I mean, people like to have sex. I mean, it's just part of our DNA. And
girls are doing it. Just
girls are doing it.
Guys,
oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, it is very, very successful.
Wow.
Yeah.
But society is changing so much that you're probably right. I mean, I feel like I'm like the old man now, but I'm 43, right? When I was growing up, if you put out a message like in my hometown of East Brunswick, New Jersey, hey, I'd like to get laid. Anybody interested? Right? Yeah, I mean, they might have locked you up.
Yeah. Well, now these days, people feel like they can get to know someone a lot better than meeting them in person. When you meet someone in person, they can hide so much. People think they're sleuths now on the internet, and they think they can figure out everything by going, okay, I'm going to see their page and see their friend's page and see it, just they know everything about them before they even have to meet them.
Yeah.
It's
know
like
what?
Switched.
This is like first step of the Matrix type stuff. You know what I
totally.
mean? Where we just ultimately we're just going to be batteries for this digital life. You're going to have a tube in your mouth to get some nutrition, and you're going to be having sex in this digital world and the whole thing.
Yeah, you're not even actually going to have the sex. You're just going to press a button like, I have consented to have sex with you in this theoretical world.
It felt great.
Like,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Well, that was kind of awkward, LOL.
All right, let's move on to porn. Oh, but before we do that, I want to remind you guys that the official outfitter of the Rubin Report is Bonobos. Go to bonobos.com, use code TRR20, and get yourself this fancy shirt. Okay, now finally, porn. You can't really do a show in 2013 without talking about porn. So people are all over the place with porn. There's a lot of theories and studies saying porn is addictive, it's bad for you, it causes men to sexualize women and be more aggressive, et cetera, et cetera. But now there's a couple studies coming out that's saying that's not quite the case. Let's look at some numbers. Got a big numbers show today. Who watches porn? 90% of 15 to 25-year-old boys have admitted to using pornography, which I thought was an interesting word. They're using it, not watching it. That's something. 40% of 15 to 25-year-old girls have admitted it. And then there's a huge generational divide, which doesn't surprise anyone. 19% of people 55 and older said porn was morally acceptable, which seems pretty low. 40% of people 18 to 34 said that it was acceptable. So is this just a computer thing? Is this just an online computer thing? Because we all have laptops. You got a computer in your bedroom and a computer, and porn is just there all the time versus the 80s, let's say, where you had to buy a magazine.
Well, yeah, because then you realize how it's not a big deal. When we were growing up, the only porn, you know, as a kid, is the little channels that had all the fuzz and everything, and you would just see little glimpses of things. You know, that's what we would, you know, watch. Now it's just so free, and you felt so bad. It was preached to you that porn is bad. It leads to bad things. It's a gateway drug to everything else. Now we've gotten to the point in it's the information age where we realize there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually great to do that and get that out of your system, and it's safer than having real sex.
It's definitely safer than having real sex.
Yeah. They would warn us, like, it's a gateway drug to having real sex. And I was like, and I'm like, that sounds like a pretty good drug to me, right? Yeah. So I'm shocked by two numbers that you showed there. Only 40% of 18 to 34-year-olds find it morally acceptable? What the fuck else is the 60% thinking? That's crazy.
Since when do young people have morals? Where did that come from?
Right, I don't, but like, I guess I grew up on porn. So to me, the idea that porn is morally unacceptable, I find unfathomable. Like, what are you, from 1855? Who thinks that?
Yeah.
Right, but apparently a lot of people do, or at least they pretend to, because if you look at the other number, well, 90% are doing that morally unacceptable thing, so perhaps you think it's a little acceptable when you're alone, and those are the people who just admitted it, right?
Exactly. So, of course, these things aren't purely scientific polls because people get embarrassed about sex and things like that. Now, obviously, I have no personal problem with porn. I have watched too much porn in my life, I'm sure of that, but to play the devil's advocate here for a second, do you think that any of this stuff, whether it's gay porn or straight porn, that it can create like a constant view of sex that is not real? Most of us don't look like those people. They're doing things that, positions that we often can't get into. And, you know, does it have any, is there any negativity to it?
I mean, are you saying like if it desensitizes what you want?
It desensitizes your ability to get off, or that
right, and maybe it does, or maybe you find out more about your body before you get into those relationships and get married. I think it's crazy that people wait for marriage to have sex for the first time. You could be miserable. Like, that's a huge part of a relationship. So I think giving it a test run is
also technically
huge.
You can't get married in this state, so.
Oh, that's right. Well, sorry, I can't get married. So, but you know, I think you should know your body. You should test drive everything before you let someone else get at it.
So that's what I've been doing this whole time, test driving.
Yes. You're just a test driver, man.
So look, I think that there is some truth to that. I remember when I was younger, and I'd watch porn, and then I'd step out into the real world, and there would be like a buffering time of like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, where I'd look at girls and be like, are they are they into it? Is this going to happen? And then I'm like, no, wait, what am I thinking? This is the real world. Of course that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I get that, but on the other hand, we buffer, okay, and then we readjust. Unless you're mental, you know that people don't just come up to each other and go, hey, you know, oh, thank you for fixing my TV. Now let's, you know, have sex immediately.
Yeah.
Oh, but triple flip side is, 40% of women are watching. When I was growing up, I would have been shocked if the number was 4%, because we had to go find the porn, right? As Lance was saying, you had to go get a magazine, or you had to get a VHS thing, and you had to put it in the family TV. And so almost none of the women, the girls that we grew up with, were watching porn. And since they're watching it, maybe they are a little bit more likely to be like, okay, I mean, you know, this, then that, and then this, right? Yeah. So that does happen a little bit. The good news
about that is, you know, women are not as visual as men are.
Right.
So they might not be as disappointed as we are. And we're guys.
Right.
We're guys too, so I think we'll be able to handle anything.
Right. Yeah. Do you think the other part of this is that porn has changed a tremendous amount? So instead of, you know, somewhat produced movies with, you know, overly tanned and big boobed, whatever, that now it's basically like Xtube is like the biggest thing online, which is homemade people doing this stuff. And they're actually monetizing it too. Did you ever think when you were stealing those VHS tapes and doing whatever you had to do, that basically everyone was going to have a webcam in their room, and you can be you're a porn actor like that if you want to be?
Well, everybody wants to be a porn actor now. I mean, look, you look at Kim Kardashian and Paris Hilton. I mean, they got so famous, so rich. How did they break through in the beginning? Homemade sex tape, you know? And I mean, I guess that's Xtube, right? So they've become, in a sense, a role model for the new generation. And I got bad news for a lot of the girls doing that. You're not going to get rich and famous.
Right.
In fact, instead, it's going to be possibly deeply embarrassing later. I just keep thinking, for all those homemade things, like, half the people in your wedding are going to have seen it. You know? Yeah. Don't do it.
You know what? One day we're going to have a president and we'll all have seen his penis, and it'll just be, and that'll be that.
And at the White House Correspondents' dinner, he'll make a joke about, like, everybody, remember when you saw my dick?
All right, we brought it full circle. Well done, Cenk, Lance. I thank you guys. And we do this every week, so please join us again. Oh, and subscribe. It's up there, or over here, or there. It's somewhere around here. And we'll see you next time. Thanks. All right, I'm Dave Rubin, and this is one more thing on the Rubin Report. So we talked a lot of topics this week. We did politics, we did porn, pretty much everything in between. But I was thinking, what I like about doing this show is I want to bring people that come from different worlds and bring them together and see if we can come up with something that's cool and get a good vibe going. And I think we did that here. So you guys, I think, actually have something very much in common that someone wouldn't think about. So Lance, you were in NSYNC, huge boy band, and then it went away. Can we say went away? It was gone.
We're still on hiatus.
We're still on long-term.
That's what I thought for a while. Like, oh, okay.
Long-term hiatus, we'll say.
Yes.
And then you made a very personal decision to come out. It has given you a new life and a new career, et cetera, et cetera. And Cenk, for you, you were in mainstream news. And then that also went on a bit of a hiatus, really by your choice, but wrangling with the powers that be, so to speak. And I think this idea is fascinating, that people get to a point in life where they have to do something profoundly personal to fix their lives. And so the question that I'm going to ask both of you guys is, do you remember when that moment happened that you knew you had to do something that I know for myself that saved my life, but that's something that really changed your life? Do you remember that absolute moment?
Well, I mean, it goes back to when I publicly came out. I knew at that moment the reaction that I got was where I needed to be in life. I love doing music, I love being an entertainer, but what gave me the reason to keep going was knowing that I could affect people's lives in a positive way. And that I'm so happy that I'm alive in this whole transition of the civil rights, movement right here in America, because I'm proud to be a part of that, and I'm glad that I'm put in that position to help out as much as I can.
And Cenk, what about for you? What was the moment that you said, all right, the corporate route of this doesn't fulfill what I need to do. I'm going to go build my own freaking network, which I'm imagining some people around you said, you're nuts.
Yeah, well, I got that plenty of times. So, we'd been building the network for a while, and we were still building it while I was at MSNBC, et cetera. But there was that moment when I had to make a decision on whether to stay at MSNBC and keep things quiet, or come out, I guess, in a sense, I wish I hadn't thought of that way, and say, look, this is what happens in reality behind the curtain, right? And I remember being in my living room, and pacing up and down, trying to decide. There were so many different factors, and I was been honest about this. One of them, of course, was money. I'd never made that much money before. When you go on TV, you get a much bigger salary, and they had offered me a huge deal in order to go to the weekends and stay quiet about how things work. On the other hand, I knew something that I thought, my God, if I could share that with the audience, if it was somebody else's story, I would do it in a second. But it's my story, and I have it, where the head of MSNBC has told me, the establishment doesn't like your tone, and you need to bring it down, and you need to play ball, and you need, and so I was torn about it. There was, there's New York, there's LA, there's my family, and I thought, well, why did I get into this in the first place? And the whole point of doing this was to be honest with the audience. And if you lose that point, no matter how much the money or anything else, you can never get it back, right? Yeah. And so I wanted to be true to what we were doing, so I decided to turn the money down and come out and publicly tell the story about how in corporate media, you have to toe the line, and you have to play Democrat and Republican games and not challenge the government too much. And I think I owed it to the audience to tell them that.
Yeah, well, and that's why I wanted to bring you guys together, because I think it's fascinating that people have a very personal thing that actually in almost every case transcends their personal lives and then goes out and helps other people. So my last question for tonight is, where do you think you would be if you had not made that choice?
I'd probably be singing with NSYNC right now still. Who knows? I love what I do. But I mean, it was such a weird time, 10 years ago was such an odd time in history of sports as the gay rights went. And who knows what would have happened if I would have came out 10 years ago in the band. Maybe it would have made things go a little faster. I don't know. Or it could have gone the other way and just really tanked and ruined my whole life, and I'd be 500 pounds at home eating my Cheetos and just depressed.
But I sense no regrets about the choice.
Zero regrets. Zero regrets.
Cenk, where would you be?
Sometimes I look at the commercials that MSNBC does, and I think, well, they would have done one for me. Right. I was going to have a weekend show with like Chris Hayes did, Melissa Harris Perry, and God, they look so nice.
You could have been standing at the Hoover Dam.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I hear about who's dating who there, and I think like, oh my God, like they got the money, they got the girls, they got the commercials, etc. So there's a little part of me that, of course, feels like, that would have been nice, right? And that's how they seduce you, right? But of course, overall, I think the whole point of building this entire career over 17, 18 years was to be true to yourself. So, I couldn't have, all that pacing was for nothing, because in the end, you have to be who you are. And it was just a process to get to find out who I really am.
It's easy to take the easy way out, right? I mean, with me, like, what if I just decided to play the straight card the rest of my life, marry a famous actress, and be this it couple in Hollywood, but living a lie? I mean, that would have been an easy route, and that's a route many people are doing today.
Yeah, right.
But that would be selling out, and that would not be, being true to myself.
Be true to yourself. That's it. Thanks, guys.